Hi everybody, Bob Giglio. Welcome back to my workshop. So I have another project that I'm just starting to do, and I thought you might be interested in seeing what I'm doing now with this nice Husky workbench. So for many years I've been using this old piece of furniture, which was the bench I've been using for a long time. It's been fine. I've assembled a lot of cabinets, as you've seen on my videos with it, do a lot of work, but I think its time has come to upgrade it. So what I decided to do was I was eyeing this. It was at Home Depot. It's a Husky workbench. What I wanted in my next workbench was for it to be adjustable. I didn't want to build, a custom heavy-duty workbench like you see a lot on the woodworking sites. It doesn't move, and it's heavy, and it doesn't adjust at the table height. So I'm going to try this project as a kind of a lightweight version, a portable, movable, lightweight bench that has the height adjustment. So, and that's what attracted me to this one at Home Depot. So it has a nice crank here, and I can crank it up or down. It has quite a span to it. It goes as high as 42 down to I think 30 inches. So that's the good things. The other good thing about it is it has these nice drawers here already built in. So, and the price point was really reasonable, roughly about $300 for it. So with wheels and everything. So it's a good deal. I couldn't pass it up. It has a 5/4 top here, hardwood top, which is nice, but it's not sufficient for what I want. So this project, what I'm going to do is I am going to make the top bigger. I'm going to overlay a bigger top. This top dimension is 52 by 24. I'm going to go to 30 inches like my old width was, which I really liked. I'm going to go 5 feet. So the goal here is to get a wider top and to put a nice vise on the end of it. So I'm putting an end vise on it, probably in the other end. I needed extra room under the top that I don't have right now with this metal frame. So I'm going to expand it over another foot on this side, and then another 3 inches on this side, so I don't cover the drawers too much. And that will give me the vise I wanted. And it's also going to have a feature where you can remove a top layer of Luan or 1/8 inch 5mm plywood and replace it as it gets dinged up and scratched up. So I didn't want a workbench that was really nice finish, a nice solid top, because it's going to get dinged up and scratched. And I want to be able to use a razor blade on it and other things. So I want it to be replaceable, at least the top thin layer. So stick around. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do this. We're going to figure it out as we go. I haven't figured out totally how to do it, but my initial thoughts are we're going to go with a 3/4 inch piece of plywood, overhang it. We're going to fill in the edges with this 5/4 pine I bought to fill it in to get the same thickness. So it'll all be one slab. And then we're going to cap it or trim it out with a maple end caps on all sides, and it should be nice. Here's the plywood I'm going to use. It's called blonde wood, 3/4 inch, and then I use this 5mm. And I'm also going to use this 5mm plywood, usually used for like underlayment or cabinet work. So again, they're going to be stacked. So this is the sacrificial layer that we're going to be replacing on a regular basis after it gets all scratched up and dinged. This is the permanent top we're going to be attaching to the bench. So we're going to go ahead and cut them both at the same time so we get the same exact cut for both, because they will be together on the bench. So, and the cut is basically going to be 3 inches less than the overall dimension. Okay, so you see how I glued that up. So the side pieces I did, you saw, I mean, I had to make sure that the problem with gluing is that when you glue it up and you clamp it, it's very slippery, so it moves around. So usually I'll put like brads or shoot some nails in it to prevent that from happening. But in this case, I don't want to have any nails in this countertop in case, I have to drill into it or something when I put the vise in. So because of that, I just used some extra clamps here to make sure that the piece is in the right place, and I had to make sure that I'm seeing the entire line that I traced in the bottom of the counter, this top, where the bench top is on the bench. And over here, I'm doing this in 2 steps. I'm gonna glue this on the side, glue it up to get a wider piece. As you saw, it was beyond the width of the stock I had. So I'm gonna glue this up tonight, like you're seeing, and then tomorrow we're gonna get ahead and then glue it to the plywood. Okay. So here is the top with the pieces, the filler pieces glued and attached to the plywood, the three-quarter plywood. You saw me do that. So it's all glued up now and dried. So now I'm going to just true up these edges, so to clean off any extra glue and to get perfect alignment between the filler piece and the plywood, because like I said, they do slip around a little bit. So you might have to shave. I could do it with a hand plane, but it's easier with a router like this setup I have here. So it's just a straight bit, 1/2-inch diameter straight bit with a lower bearing on it it's gonna track on the plywood. I cleaned off it, scraped off any glue that got on the plywood, and now this is gonna be the guide edge here, and it's gonna trim back any of the glue or any sort of minor adjustments needed to the pads. So the next step is to prepare the edges for the maple trim. So as you know, we've been talking about putting a nice maple edge. Here's just a mock-up of using the same pine that I use for the fillers. But it's going to be basically, it's going to trim out the edges of the workbench top. So, and I decided to go ahead with a spline fit here and make it nice and strong. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut in a slot, a 1/4-inch slot, a groove into both the pine filler piece here and the plywood itself. So I'm going to run 2 splines on this joint. One on the bottom, in this case it's upside down, and then one on the top, which the spline groove is going to be centered right into that top layer of plywood right there. So I set up my router bit here. My router with this nice slot cutting bit. It's a 1/4-inch wide by 3/8 deep. So it has an inside bearing there to keep me perfect depth. I've set the adjustment here to give me a 3/8 depth from the surface down here. You see this pencil line? That's where it's going to cut from this side, and then on the other side, when I flip it over, it's going to cut the same dimension, 3/8 down and 3/8 in. So let's go ahead and make those cuts. next step is to trim out the edges of the top. And before we can do that, we got to figure out where we're going to put the vise. So here's the vise I bought it online, Chinese vise. There's a bunch of them on there. So you realize they're all made by the same manufacturer in China, and then you just have to really pay the price that you think is fair. So here it is. It's going to undermount just like it's shown here. And I positioned it 6 inches in from the edge that will be added here. So, and then it leaves me with about a 24-inch piece here. And I'm going to make a separate piece for the vise itself, and it's going to be much wider. It's going to be a lot taller because I want the mating clamping surface of this vise to be 5.5, the full width of a 2x6. Where over here is just going to be the width of the bench top, and the same for the sides and this side. And because of the front of the drawers underneath here, I'm only going to trim it out with a single 3/4 inch piece of maple on both long sides, and then on the end sides, just to match the vise side, I'm gonna double up 3/4 and do 1.5 inches. I'm going to glue together two 3/4 pieces to make an 1.5 inch trim cap on both the sides, the front and the back here. So, and it'll match the vise, and it should look really nice. So what I did was I bought some maple right here, clear maple, 1x6. I'm going to go ahead and cut this up into the trim pieces we need. Here are the maple trim pieces that, as you saw, we cut out of that maple stock, and we glued up the end trim pieces to make them double wide, double thick, and that's going to basically be to match the vise jaws, which are right here. So, and we used my joiner to get nice square and smooth edges on them. And so the next step is to now cut the dados into this to allow the spline to mate into the trim pieces that we've cut into the same slot into the top itself. So this is the spline, is a sample of the spline. As you see here, I did put on the sacrificial piece of the top because I want to get the right height now with the trim pieces when we line them up with this piece in place. And I have this plywood I had, 1/4 inch, precisely 1/4 inch. We're going to just cut a couple of strips out of this to make the splines. To cut the dado into the maple trim pieces to receive the spline, I set up my dado blade here, just the end plates, end cutters, and this works out just about, it'd be a little bit under 1/4 inch, which is perfect. And the depth I set here is 3/8 of an inch high. So, and I ran a couple of test pieces here on some scrap, and after the second try, I got it really good. So one of the things I was looking for was to make sure I had the right reveal. Okay, so I dry fit the trim pieces onto the top, as you can see. Looks really nice. The reveal is just perfect. Anyways, now we're going to decide how to do the corners. I wanted to do a miter corner here, which I think would give you the best look. I don't want to see the end grain or the slot cuts into the end grain in the end of the trim pieces. So what I decided to do is a miter, an offset miter. Because I have a double thickness trim piece here and a single thickness here, I'm going to go ahead and do what's called an offset miter. So I'm going to basically cut out the first half of the wood, the first 3/4 as a butt joint, and then I'm gonna use an angle joint, a 45, to make the miter on the end piece, and then on the side piece I'm gonna go just 45 it, and it should look really nice when it's all put together. Okay, well here it is all dry fitted. You can see how I extended the lower portion of this trim here for the vise, which we're going to drill and install soon. Here is the nice chunky end trim, a double width, and then here's the front. And you can see how those corners came out, that offset miter. So looks really good. I don't plan on using any fasteners. I'm just going to glue it up, clamp the trim edging to the top. Here's the top flipped over, and I flipped it over so I can now trim back. I can put a mark along all of the trim on the bottom, and then I know where to trim it back exactly to the thickness of the top. So we're going to go ahead and do that. I already sketched out the lines. It should all be about 2 inches, you know, with the reveal on top for that sacrificial piece. So that's one thing I'm going to do. And then over here, I set up the vise bracket here. So what I did was I just clamped this in place. This is the inner vise jaw. Here's the outer vise jaw here. It's going to mate like that. And I just positioned the bracket so it's centered on this piece here, which is roughly 12 3/4 inches. And I marked out the holes, and now I'm going to just go ahead and drill the pilot holes with this hinge bit, which comes in very handy because it will center the drill bit on each of the holes that are larger than the actual screw is going to be. So let me just do that for you real quick. And then we can take that bracket off and go ahead and drill the holes full depth for the lag screws. I'm gonna attach these this bracket with these lag screws, 1.5 1/4 inch lag screws. So here's a couple other details I want you to know about. So with the bracket set now, the other thing we have to do is drill the holes through both jaws, the front and the back jaws, that sit together like this, okay? And to receive the guide pins and the screws. So to do that, I'm just going to go ahead and just trace it out here through these openings, since the bracket's already positioned. And then when I drill them, I'm just going to take both of those jaws together, stack them in the drill press, and drill right through both front and back jaws. The other thing I'm going to do is this back jaw. I want to be able to have it removable or replaceable in case something messes up with it, or maybe it's too hard or too soft. I don't know, but I want the flexibility to do this. So I'm not going to glue this to the top. I'm going to use these nice 3-inch by 10 number 10 3-inch wood screws, brass screws here. I'm going to go ahead and drill holes, 4 holes through the back jaw. And to do that, I'm going to just know where I'm drilling. If you take this piece off, you can see where the splines are. I'm going to get it right in the middle between the splines into this nice piece of pine here. So I'm going to go ahead and drill just the back jaw with these screw openings. One final detail, never thought doing a top would be so complicated, is this piece here. This is the front piece where the original top sits here. This is going to be like a hat on top of the original top. So this is going to it's going to have to hold itself in place with just a single spline because the original top sits right in here. To give it extra strength, what I'm going to do is, since I can put a spline in here, I'm going to go ahead and cut a dado on each end of this front piece, and I'll be able to spline both the top and the bottom. Give it a little extra strength on the ends so it never comes apart or separates. So now it's time to glue up the trim pieces to the top, and I decided to put just to glue up the end pieces first, the end caps, the thicker end caps first, let them dry, get a nice stable end caps, and then we're going to glue on the side pieces. So we're going to just do that now, and just want to be careful that we don't get glue too close to the edge, because remember there's a spline coming this way that I don't want to get near with glue, because then I won't be able to glue up those splines on the sides. So I'm going to keep a good distance from the edge. Now on this side we're going to have the vice jaw, which we're not going to glue. Like I said, we're going to screw it. So this we're just going to put in place for the clamps to support the side. And this is the piece we're going to glue. So let's go ahead and glue that up. With the end caps glued up, now it's time to do the side pieces, the side trim pieces. So with the trim all glued up, I flipped it all over on its back side. I'm just cleaning up the glue, and I'm going to plane these sides now, these trim pieces, to the actual bottom of the top, up to these pine filler blocks, and I get a nice smooth underside to the top. Okay, so you saw me clean up this bottom of the bench top. I sanded it. I rounded the edges off here. I planed down the trim edges, and everything's nice and smooth now. So we're just about finished with the underside. The last thing we have to do is assemble the vise. So you saw me drill this back vise jar here into the tabletop with the splines. So I have the 4 brass screws there. I drilled out the holes, you saw me do that. And I had to fine tune them, as you saw, with my sanding drum to get a nice smooth operation of the screw and the guide pins, the rods. So now it's time to assemble it. So what we're going to do is we're going to attach the bracket now to the back side of the jar and the bottom of the top. And then we're going to go ahead and put this part together, the front part, into the front jar here. And you saw me drill out these holes that will line up with the front face of the bracket for the vise. And I'm using these number 14 by 1 inch screws to use in these to attach the front face of the jars to the bracket, to the vise bracket. So here is the top flipped over, back around. So now we're going to go ahead and clean this up, similar to what I did on the underside. We're going to give it a good sanding. We're going to round off these edges with an 1/8 inch round over bit, and just clean it up generally, get it ready for some finish. With the top all sanded and the edges eased around the trim, now it's time to put the insert into the top, and as you see, just like that. So it looks good. And here is the outer vise jar we talked about. I went ahead and did a 1/2 inch radius round over bit on my router table to ease that edge with a nice curvature to it. And finally, this return block we were talking about to fill this space here. I went ahead and I just cut a piece of maple, the right dimensions with a 45 at the end, and it fits in there quite nicely. And we're just going to go ahead and glue that in place. Now it's time to make the handle for the vise. I went out and I bought a dowel, 7/8 in diameter. This is a hardwood dowel. I think it's poplar, and it fits quite nicely into the handle of the vise. So we're going to now use this, and we're gonna make a couple of end stops for it. So I came up with the idea of just using I had some aspen, a hardwood countertop hanging around in my scrap bin, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the diameter of the stops, the handle stops, 1.5 inch in diameter, so they'll be even with the outside edge of this vise yoke. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a 7/8 hole into the block of wood I have, and I'm going to go down about 1 inch in depth, and this will be enough for the handle to fit in as a socket. So the idea is to make this into a socket, and then I'm going to go to the bandsaw and just cut it as fine as I can, get a circle, and I'm going to finish it up. Okay, I decided to do an extra one just in case I mess one up, but here they are. I drilled 3 of them. The inner hole is 7/8. The circle I'm drawing here is 1.5 inches, and you can see I drew the pilot holes all the way through. That's going to be I'm going to use a screw here on the back side to actually anchor the stops to the handle when we're done. Okay, so with the pieces cut, the caps cut, I put it on my drill press now. I set it to the fastest speed, 2,000 RPMs, and I just used a sanding drum that was 7/8, which fits snugly into the end cap. And now we're going to use this like a lathe. So we're going to spin it up, and we're going to start with a file, and then finish with some sandpaper. Okay, so here's the handle all done with the end caps installed. Like I said, I went ahead and used a brass screw here, 1" by number 6 1" brass screw, and it came out really nice. Happy with the handle. So the other thing I did was I went ahead and glued and sanded in this end piece here to use a butt joint on the end of that. It came out really nice. So now it's time to do the bench dogs. And so I went out and went to Amazon. I bought these aluminum black ionized dogs, 3/4 inch diameter by 1" deep. And I'm going to go ahead and drill a series of holes into the bench top and in this outer jaw so that I'll have the ability to clamp all the flat work I need. And so how I laid out the holes was that I basically lined up the axis of these lines going down the top with the guide rods and the screw of the vise. So I'll have 3 of these dog holes available to use with that alignment. And then what I did was I opened up the vise all the way, and I measured the maximum distance between the vise jaws in the fully open position, which came out to be a little bit over 7 inches. So to make sure that I'll never have a piece of wood that won't give me clamping force with the jaws, I space the dog spaces 6 inches, which is less than the 7" screw range of the vise, which means I'll always have enough screw capacity to clamp any piece of wood, no matter what the size is. So, how I'm going to drill the holes, I set up my my drill, portable drill angle guide here, and I chucked in a 3/4 inch bit wood. So on second thought, I didn't think this was going to be a good idea, because you see how high up I am when I'm holding the drill, and I get a lot of wobble here. And if I have one hand holding this handle and the other hand controlling the trigger, I just didn't feel comfortable that I could control it consistently, repeatedly on every hole and get a nice square precision drilled hole on all of my markings. So instead I went to this system here, where I went ahead and I drilled out a 2x8 framing timber, and I went ahead and I already pre-drilled the holes to the right pattern, 6 inches apart. I aligned them up with the original markings I had on the top. So now I can just go ahead and do 10 holes, 10 holes at a time with this template, and I locked it in place, just putting a cross member clamped in place, and I'm using the actual vise to clamp the other end. Now it's nice and held nice and sturdy, and we're going to go ahead and just drill a pattern of the 10 holes at a whack, and then move the jig down, or move it this way, get the third row. Okay, so here are all the holes drilled with some of the dogs installed here. So everything looks good. You saw how I drilled them. I wanted to make one note I didn't make obvious. When I made the template, I used the drill press to accurately locate the holes in the template. So that avoided me freehanding the holes on a 6-inch center. So the drill press made sure that I got the holes precisely located in the template, in the 2x8 template, and then that they were square in the template. So therefore they're square here because I used the same template to use to re-drill the top. Okay, so that's all set. You saw me drill these holes here on the drill press, the ones in the jaw, the front jaw here. So that's good. And we're just about finishing up the project now. A couple of things left to do. One of the things I want to do is I want to, even though this top is a very snug fit, I really made it snug. And this this trim that wraps around really it tightly fits the top. You can see if I have to push it down that it's a nice tight fit. But just in case if I'm working on this thing, I don't want this to move at all. So what I decided to do was I'm gonna underneath this bench top, I'm going to put some elbow brackets in, angle brackets, aluminum. I'm gonna put 3 of them in, one here, one in the center, and then one 1-inch inside of these guide rods for the vise. So what I'm going to do is I got some 2-inch angle aluminum angle iron here. It's 1/8 inch thick, 2x2, bought it at Home Depot. And then I installed a metal cutting 100 tooth blade into my chop saw, and we're gonna go ahead and just cut these 11 inches in length because that was the length where I wanted to make sure they didn't interfere with any clamps that I want to clamp. So I kept this area open 4 inches on all sides like it is on the sides. So if I want to put a clamp under here, clamps it on top, it wouldn't interfere with the bracket. Okay, so let's cut those brackets now. So now it's just a matter of drilling for screws. I'm going to use these 1-inch by 8 screws. It's going to come in from the bottom. So now I'm just going to go ahead and drill these holes. Okay, so there they are. All the brackets are attached. And now it can never tilt over and it never can lift off. But again, we can remove the top by unscrewing the brackets and bring us right back to the original workbench that we bought. Okay, one of the last details I gotta resolve here, figure out, is this handle. So now that we've, this is the handle, by the way, that cranks the top up and down, the height of the bench top. So now that we added this 3/4 inch trim maple here, it is now hitting it. So we have to extend this out longer so I can crank it. So I kind of figured out that I need to go at least another inch. So that way it'll give me some nice clearance to the crank. So what it is if you look under here, you'll see basically a shaft that is on a hex up here. That's a 10mm hex that actually controls the mechanism to lower and raise the table. So, and then it slides in when you don't need it. So it's out of the way. So it basically slides in like that. So inside of this tube here is a 10mm hex shape to it. So that's the way it can extend and retract. So we got to figure out how to extend this out about an inch, this tube. So what I did was I went ahead and on Amazon, I bought this 15 millimeter OD tube, aluminum tube, which we're going to use as kind of like a coupling, and sort of. I haven't figured it out yet, but we're going to use it to extend it. They also brought a 10 millimeter hex Allen wrench. I can cut a piece of this and use it as a coupling. So I haven't figured out totally, so let's take it apart and figure out how we're going to do this. So to get a better look at the crank handle and this shaft here, I went ahead and just clamped it here, the same dimensions as it is underneath the bench. So now I get a better idea of how this works. So, and what we can do. So now the issue here is I only need to extend this handle by about 1 inch, which is, roughly 25 millimeters. And the problem with that is it's a socket type fit. This is a 10 millimeter hex. And so if I could just cut this tube and use it as an extension, then I'd be okay, but I don't have anywhere to attach this tube to here without some sort of coupling. So the way that I've kind of come up, my idea is that what we'll do is we're going to cut this rod, and I'm going to cut it about 50 millimeters in. And that will give me enough depth inside this tube, which, like we said, is really a socket, a 10 millimeter socket on the inside. So I'll have 50 millimeters here, which is about twice the distance of this piece here, this hex here, which is about 22 millimeters. So that will be my coupling, okay, once I cut this. And now what I can do is I can put a set screw 10 millimeters in from that cut on either side and use it to anchor a piece of this rod here, this 10 millimeter hex Allen wrench, as the coupling. And then to fill the space of where this will be exposed now, because I'm going to be cutting this, moving it back about 25 millimeters. Now that will leave this exposed, but that's going to be a problem because when I push it in, it's going to be sloppy in this pillow block. So that's why I bought this rod. This rod is the same diameter, 15 millimeter OD. As you can see here, it'll fit right in here like this. The problem with this rod is if this was a hex on the inside like this one is, then I just use this, cut it longer, and put one set screw in it, put the handle in it, we'd be done. But unfortunately, I cannot find a tube like this anywhere that has a 10 millimeter hex on the inside. So therefore, I'm going to only use this round tube, which has no hex, as a guide bushing, basically. So what I'll do is when I cut this here and move it out, I'm just going to bore this out internally so that this will slip through nicely, and this becomes a bushing. And I'll cut this bushing to the 25 millimeter filler space, or the extension space that we need. So let's go ahead and do it. Okay, so here's the rod assembled with the hex wrench inside. So I basically put a mark here, 25 millimeter in. So this rod I drove further in, because there's no need to cut it off. So it goes in right about here. This line is where the receiving hex from the table goes full length. So I got clearance to that. And so I pushed it, I cut it, so I'm just before that, so I get a nice secure fit to this extension piece. And then this is going to go like this. And then here is the piece I cut from the other round rod. So we're going to go ahead and fit it in like that. First we have to drill it, because it's too small, to 15-30 seconds, right before 1/2 inch. Assemble the pieces together. As you see, here is the extension piece here, and beneath that is the hex shaft that goes into both of these pieces. This one goes in pretty deep. This one goes in, like we said, the 25 millimeters. So if we can't get the right drill bit to drill through that hardened hex rod, then I'm just going to do a drop of super glue on each one. These are in really good, so I really don't think it's going to be a problem. when you're moving the handle in and out. So this is the handle that's going to have the bolt in it like that, like it was originally designed. So basically that's it. So it's going to be now just about done. We just want to polish up these seams here to make sure it glides smoothly through the pillow block as it goes, retracts or compresses back into the table. So here's the finished product. You know, I learned a couple of things on this one. I ended up just using the super glue as a set screw basically on both ends. Because it really is not a lot of, really very little stress on this rod from coming apart, because the inside hex Allen is pretty well secure inside the sockets by itself. So the super glue just kind of sets it in place, so in case it ever comes apart. I did figure out that I could have continued drilling these through with a carbide drill bit, which I do have, but I'd also have to tap it. So, and I don't have a carbide tap. So whenever you work on tool steel, you know, you need some pretty tough material to cut into it. So I decided this is good. If in future it ever opens up, then I can always just re-drill these holes here and tap them and do it then. So, but anyways, here it is complete. Here you can see with the crank handle how it's going to look. It slides nicely through the pillow blocks, and it's extended by 1 inch. So let's just put it back together. So we're just about finished with our project. The final step is going to be just giving it a final sanding and then spraying it with a nice coat of poly. Make it nice and durable and easy to clean. Here is the handle. If you can see it, it works nicely now. Pull it in and out. You can crank it up and down. So did a good job on that. It hides away when you don't change the height. And so let's take it out to the paint shop, take it apart, take it to the paint shop, and give it a nice spraying. Okay, welcome to my paint shop, which today is going to be my backyard. It's a nice day out. So we're all set to start to spray. So what I do is I'm using my gun here, my Astro gun, with a 1.3 millimeter needle to it. Does a nice job in spraying fine paints, thin paints, like this polyurethane. It's just a Minwax polyurethane, clear finish, satin. So we're going to go ahead and give the bottoms, which you're seeing now, 2 coats, and then we're going to flip it and do 3 coats on the top. Okay, so here it is, the final product. Very happy with the way it came out. As you see, I got the maple trim around all the edges. I got this nice removable top here, as you can see. As I scuff it up and mark it up, I can replace it or flip it over. I got the dog holes here in both the replaceable top as well as the bench, which is a nice feature. But one of the nicest features is this height adjustment, which is really what attracted me to this project. Was buying this table at Home Depot with this adjustable height was great. That's really what I wanted. I didn't want a heavy duty bench top that I can't move around. This is easily, I get it on wheels, comes this way, so I just made the top much bigger. And one of the great features of this is these drawers. It gets some nice wide drawers where I can put all sorts of chisels and bench tools that I need in the future. And of course the vise. The vise came out very nice. I made these maple jaws. I made this handle myself. You saw how I made the caps for it, end caps. And it's a heavy duty wood vise that has 3 dog holes drilled into it. And then I can put multiple dog holes anywhere along the bench here, and clamp flat stocks wherever I want. So it worked out very well, and thanks for watching.